Hi, I'm Roy Petitfils. In this third of three videos where we're talking about understanding the lived reality of the nuns, I'd like to talk about listening to understand, which is very powerful, versus listening to fix, which is very common and not very powerful at all. And one of the big pieces, I think, that we got out of the research from those who sat with some unaffiliated and listened to their stories was just that, how important it was for them to have someone care enough to actually sit and listen to understand their story. Your story is important to you. My story is important to me. And I'll kind of preface where the question will go at the end. Who is someone in your life who has or does really listen to you? Who is someone who has listened to your story, asked questions to get the nuances of your story, and has left you in a place where you felt heard, you felt understood by that other person? And begin to think about that. And who is someone in your life whom you could listen that way to? But all too common for most of us, myself included, we listen to fix. And listening to fix feels like we're doing something versus listening to understand, where we feel a little powerless, we feel a lot more vulnerable, and we don't feel like we're doing anything. But listening to fix, believe it or not, is as much as it might intuitively seem like it's more difficult, it's actually a lot easier than listening to understand. It's easy to listen to someone constantly thinking, okay, when can I offer the solution? Let me understand just enough to where I can give them the next step that they need to take. Not that there's not a place for that, but the type of listening that is needed today in evangelization, the type of listening that is needed if we really want to share the good news with people, is listening to understand. And as counterintuitive as it sounds, we share one of the most powerful, and I would argue the most powerful way that we can share the good news with people interpersonally is not through talking about God, not through talking about the faith, but listening to the lived experience of the other person. And we can only do that when we listen to understand. Now that's hard. And anyone who suggests otherwise is selling you a bill of goods that's no good. You don't want it. They're making something that's very difficult, sound very simple. Now, it's not incredibly complex, but it's also not easy. It's hard to do because everything in us, the ego wants to assert itself. The ego wants to fix because it feels like it's doing anything, versus sitting back, asking, suspending judgment, right? Suspending my need to fix, postponing that, and continuing to seek, what more can I understand? What else don't I understand? What else could I use clarity on? And when we do that to other people, we know that it powerfully affects the brain. When we listen to understand, the research has shown that when people feel heard, the same parts of their brain lights up if they won the lottery. It's huge. It's huge. As well as, especially if someone's trying to figure out which way to go, or a decision that they may be facing, or discerning a thing or a few things in their life, being heard allows their brain to be able to open up, and they go from like this to be like this, and they can see a lot more options that they can choose from. We don't need to fix people. We don't need to do nearly as much instructing and as much talking as we think we need to. But listening to understand is characterized by asking questions, genuine curiosity, as well as a commitment to be in relationship. So who's that one person in your life who needs to be understood, who needs you to listen to understand? And who is someone in your life that has listened to you in order to understand where you're coming from? And what was that like for you? God bless.